But above the picturesque landscape, the skies tell a different story. Above Seward, UFOs strafe the northern sky. All different style of aircraft, all moving in patterns not humanly possible. Witnessed by wide-eyed residents below. Why Seward? What do these alien aircraft want with this small slice of Alaska?
My name is Jeff Erickson, and I own Granite Point Mountain Lodge, and I live in Seward, Alaska. I've been in Alaska for 26 winters. Most of the years living a subsistence lifestyle and very in touch with the wilderness. I love living in Seward, Alaska. It's a beautiful place. It's nice and wet all the time and beautiful and very rugged terrain. When you're hiking around the mountains, you can see black bears, grizzly bears, lynx, all sorts of cool creatures.
Slate, come here, babes.
So we'll want to take all these eggs out.
I've got 3 young, beautiful children, and my partner, Melissa.
Ooh, that's a lot of eggs.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time out here in the wilderness, and we spend a lot of time hunting and fishing and camping. And I spend a lot of time looking up at the skies around here. It's just so beautiful. But there is really nothing that even comes close to what I saw the other night. It was definitely unidentified flying object of some sort. So I'd been out here for 9 days trying to get this foundation put in for a new cabin. And finally sit down for a few minutes to get some rack time. And I looked up, and there was this crazy light in the sky.
Jeff was lured from bed to the window by the horrifying lights and began to record what he was seeing without hesitation.
They were moving so quickly with so much fluidity that I knew that it wasn't the normal craft in the skies. The speed in which they moved and the cornering, pulling G-forces that humans wouldn't be able to withstand.
On that fateful night, across the bay from their lodge, Jeff's partner, Melissa, played tour guide for a friend who had recently moved to Seward and was in for the fright of her life.
I'm a skeptic by nature, and seeing is believing is what I always say. But I just can't help what I saw, and people saw it with me from different perspectives. It was like maybe 10:30 or so, and I was driving down Nash Road with my friend T. He hasn't been in town for too long, and he hadn't really seen much of Seward.
My name is Terrell Charles. You can call me T. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I moved here to work in the fishing cannery. Me and Melissa, we good friends. She's one of the 5 people that I met when I came here, and one night she said, I'm gonna show you around. So we were riding around, just riding down Nash Road, and we seen something floating in the sky. And look what that is right there. See that? When we were coming over the hill and we saw this thing, we had to pull over. I mean, it was noticeable.
I looked up and I saw flashing lights, just this thing that looked bigger than a star, but it was just twinkling. It was flashing lights. And he looked and it was just like, what is that?
Menacing lights in the sky at the same time Melissa's partner Jeff had his UFO encounter? Coincidence? Or are they witnessing the same phenomenon?
It was just like a spaceship, a machine thing, a saucer in the sky. It tripped our head out. We're like, I'm looking at her, she's looking at me. We were both looking at this. I ain't never seen nothing go that fast. That high in the sky. Man, it was scary. I was scared. Then it was dark. And then you just see the thing with the lights. The lights was beaming. And I was scared, man. I know what I saw. It scared the hell out of me.
Anchorage is Alaska's bustling metropolis, with a population that accounts for a third of the state. Surrounded by natural wonder, Anchorage is a rare large city in an otherwise wild landscape. But over the last decade, once the sun sets on the city, its residents have been hearing eerie sounds ripping through the night sky. The violent noises beg to be accompanied by something frightening to witness. But each time, only a foreboding sound that can't be ignored. Could aliens be trying to communicate with the people of Anchorage? Or is there something more sinister at play?
My name is Melissa. I live in Anchorage, Alaska, and I heard something really strange that I can't explain. It was like a sound that was bigger than me, bigger than all of us, really. It was super late at night, like 3 in the morning or something. I heard a strange sound outside. Then I just started recording. That is so creepy. It sounded kind of like something that was a really heavy metal object, I guess, being drugged underwater. It's an odd sound that I've never heard any other time in my life. And it just made me feel like something really bad was going to happen. As I sat out there and I heard one after another, each time I heard it, it got worse and worse. It got louder, and then I started to feel more and more uncomfortable. And I hope you guys can hear this. Feeling like there was something out there with me. Oh, gosh. The 6th one that I heard, I got super creeped out. No, that's creepy. And I had to go inside. Everyone was sleeping at my house when I heard it. If one person hears it, you think that everyone around you would hear it, but that's not the case. It's almost like I was chosen to hear it. And if I'm chosen for that, I don't think it's a positive thing. To me, that's scary.
But Melissa may not be the only chosen one. There are other earshot witnesses who have dug deeper to get to the bottom of these sounds.
Once I myself heard the tones, it was weird and different and disruptive and turbulent. When I started seeing that others had heard the same thing, there started to get a little bit more of an eerie feeling.
My name is Roger McCarty. I'm Koyukon Athabaskan from interior Alaska. For 22 years, I've had a strange object lodged in my leg. It's something that's not going to be of this world. It's an alien implant.
Living in isolation in Alaska's unforgiving terrain has left Roger immune to most fears.
I try not to be afraid of anything unknown. I was born and raised in Ruby on the Yukon River. There's no roads in or out. Harvest your food off the land. Life is a lot slower paced than in the city. It's just peaceful there. But while I was hunting alone, middle of the night, I had a terrifying experience.
Roger's peace was shattered by an event so unbelievable, he's told no one. Until now.
It was around mid-February. It was probably about 15, 20 below zero. I couldn't sleep, so thought I'd go out on the river and look for some wolves to hunt. I took off back through this slough. It was pitch dark out, just my snow machine light. I was almost getting to the Yukon, and just all of a sudden, I just started feeling like I was being watched. Just an eerie feeling. I just kind of got the chills, and it never really happened before like that. I thought, heck with this. I'm gonna head back to the cabin.
At that moment, Roger went from being watched to hunted.
All of a sudden, something stung me in the side of the leg here. I grabbed my leg. Ow, what the heck is that? It was just a burn. And I thought, well, I better keep going here. I feel like something's following me.
Back at the cabin, Roger discovers a bloody wound on his leg.
There's a spot of blood there. It felt like a BB right under the skin.
But Roger has only traded one nightmare for another, more horrifying one.
All of a sudden, I looked up and it was lit up outdoors like a stadium. There's a light coming from straight above the cabin. And it was just the brightest white light. I looked out the window and I could just see all over in the yard. I thought, wow, what the heck is that light? It can't be a helicopter. I don't hear nothing. And all of a sudden, the light went off. I was so bewildered by it, I forgot all about my leg. That night, I had the weirdest dream I've ever had. The door swung open and I was going out, flying just like face down from the cabin. I went east, over Fairbanks. In a split second, I saw the lights of Fairbanks. I thought, wow, already to Fairbanks, and then kept going southeast. And I ended up seeing another really big city, and I thought, wow, that's Seattle there. We kept going, and then another huge city. I thought, maybe that's Chicago, and then kept going for a second, and a really huge city, and I thought, New York? Because after that, it was just dark, like the Atlantic Ocean. And from there, in my dream, I went straight up, and I couldn't move my limbs, or I couldn't do nothing. And then dark. I just fell on the bed.
He awoke the next morning to an unsettling memory.
I was laying on a operating table. I was shivering, freezing. I had my arms against my body, trying to save heat. I turned my head and looked, and I saw there's other people here. I was thinking, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. Then I just, in my dream, I remember all I was doing was just shivering. Before I knew it, I woke up, and it was morning at the cabin.
Was Roger's memory a nightmare or an alien encounter? He has waited 22 years to finally know the answer.
After my experience happened, I kind of just put it in the back of my mind, thinking, oh, my friends and family, they're gonna think I'm crazy. And now I saw a show about this doctor removing alien implants from people. emitting radio frequencies until the doctor removed it. And right there, a light went off in my head. That's what happened to me. That's gotta be what happened. Something I didn't just dream up and make up. It really happened. Part of me telling this to the world to prove what happened to me and the removal of the object, and is it emitting radio frequency? It has to be an alien implant.
Along the banks of the Tanana River is North Pole, Alaska. Above the Christmas-themed streets and beyond Santa's sleigh, there are mysteries in the sky. Countless inexplicable alien craft have been witnessed above this frozen locale for decades. Could their presence here be linked to nearby Fort Wainwright or Eielson Air Force Base? Two military installations that are historically ripe for running into aliens and UFOs.
My name is Renee Bullock. I lived in North Pole since '89. Whatever that was there that night that I saw, it has lasted in me forever. I want to tell my story now because the world should know that we're not alone here. One night I come home from work. It was a cold, clear night. The northern lights were out as well. I go up the porch and I hear my dogs barking, a very weird bark. And I'm yelling, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And they turned and looked at me with this look in their eyes that was so unforgettable. Like a silent scream, but fear in their eyes. And about that time, I looked up just like an inch, and there it was. This huge ship. I went, oh my God. It was enormous. It made no sound. The spacing of the lights, 40 feet apart. There was 4 of them I could see. That thing was big enough to suck my whole house up into it and take it away. To sneak in here like that, it obviously was under the radar of our own military. And I'm going, holy, what the hell is this? And at that point, I felt, oh my God, we're in trouble. I stood there 6 minutes at least in disbelief. And when it left, it just, like it was an illusion, but not. It made me feel like really, really small, like we are very small, and that there's other things out there that we just, don't really even know about. I'm 100% American, but I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mess with something like that.
But Renee's sighting was only the beginning of truly bizarre events in North Pole, Alaska.
This is the tower they built.
Suddenly, in the middle of winter, construction started on a massive communication tower.
I thought it was really strange that this happened within a week of the sighting.
Could the tower's hasty construction be linked to the UFO?
I looked out my window one night, didn't see it a week prior, and it's there all of a sudden.
Renee's experience in this area tells her there is definitely something unusual going on.
My husband and I did dirt work. We had a dirt business. We did a lot of well drilling, things like that, where we use an excavator. Nobody digs dirt in the frozen ground here. But someone felt it was so important to put a communication tower up in the middle of winter at 40 below zero in frozen wetlands
In this frozen environment, construction can only be conducted certain times of year. Otherwise, annual permafrost creates an impenetrable layer that later becomes unstable when it thaws in the relatively warmer weather.
I cannot believe how enormous this is. I've never driven this close to it and seen it. Every night I would lay in my bedroom and just look at the light pattern on this thing and just wonder all the time what that was. Never getting any answers. I wanted so bad to call the military. I didn't feel that they would admit it anyway.
Renee had so many questions, and she'd soon find out that she was not alone.
What happened after I saw this thing is so strange. I'll never forget it as long as I live. It made me feel like really, really small. Like we are very small, and that there's other things out there that we just, don't really even know about.
Soon after, strange communication towers were built in the dead of winter. What was the rush? But what happened next would haunt Renee forever.
I went to a little hometown bar over here, and two men walk in the bar. And they have these uniforms. They look like the Men in Black. I kid you not. They asked me, "What did you see? We want to know what you saw." And I've never seen these men before in my life.
Since the 1950s, there have been reports of mysterious men in black intimidating witnesses after encounters with UFOs. At a 1986 meeting about sightings over Alaska, government agents from the CIA and FBI told FAA representatives that we were never here and this never happened.
I said, "Who are you?" I said, what are you talking about? And they said, "We know you saw something. We just want to know what you saw." And I just said, "I can't tell you that." Why would they come and ask me questions? They probably pinpointed exactly where that ship was in the sky that night, analyzing maybe what was going on. I think they were in this area for a reason. Not to mention there's a military base right back there behind me.
How did these mysterious strangers know about Renee and what she had seen? One thing is certain. Things are not what they seem in North Pole, Alaska. And Renee is ready to speak out about her experience and what she knows.
The guys in the coats coming to see me and ask me questions. It all makes sense to me that somebody saw something. They knew it was here. I haven't never seen nothing like that until that day. And I've wondered about it ever since.
Since humankind has inhabited Alaska, there have been stories of abnormal lights and objects in the sky. These stories have continued through to the modern day, and with increasing frequency. Surrounded by wilderness, scores of tourists flock to the metropolis of Anchorage as a gateway to Alaska's natural wonder. But another, more unnerving kind of visitor frequents the skies over Anchorage. This airspace is eerily appealing to unknown aircraft. Why Anchorage? What could UFOs want with this remote Alaskan city?
My name is Bill Carter. I've been around aircraft all my life. My mother, she was a pilot and very active in the Women's Pilots Association. Both of my parents were pilots. What I saw, I can tell you, it was nothing that I have ever seen in the skies of Alaska, ever. I was from Oregon, came up here for a 2-week job in 1984, and I've been here ever since. I couldn't be in the situation we're in right now without my wife, Patricia.
My name is Patricia Roll. I'm at the Baskin, born and raised Anchorage, Alaska.
Nothing could prepare Bill and Patricia for what they witnessed together on a frozen winter night. A sighting that made them question everything.
December 16th, 2019. It's a night I'll never forget.
Bill and I were getting into the car, and we saw something in the night skies that did not belong there. It was what we called orange orbs.
I looked up in the sky because I saw some orange glow off the hood of the car. Pat said, "What's that?" Wow.
What the hell?
I don't know, look at that. An orange orb, huge, and it's coming towards us.
The moment I saw it, I said, that's a UFO.
It's something. And then I see another one coming right behind the first one. Same altitude, and they're moving towards me. About that time, another one comes up.
Look how many.
I know. I jumped out of the car, and there is no sound.
No sound at all.
They do not make a sound.
They were extremely bright.
Very bright.
Bright. A bright I've never seen before. Bill did tell me to go get my camera, so I got my phone out. But it was December, so it was cold, so my hands were shaking a little bit.
The whole thing was glowing, and to me, it looked like orange coals glowing and changing. I believe they were intelligently controlled because they were all coming at the same speed, the same elevation, and they were spaced the same distance apart. What was that?
Look. What did we just see?
That's a UFO.
Unbelievable. Seriously.
And how, did you see how many?
As someone who has spent his entire life around aircraft, the unnerving sighting has left Bill scrambling for answers.
And I was so taken aback by what did we see? And I mean, still every day we go through this of what did we witness? What did we see? We saw something. It's nothing that was military. It's not private aircraft. I'm gonna say there was about 7 of them. I can't give you an exact count. Quite frankly, I don't think it was from this world. I want to know what it was.
According to Alaskan UFO expert Krista Stewart, Patricia and Bill are far from the only citizens of the state to witness multiple UFOs at the same time.
I've been researching UFO phenomenon for over 20 years. And with UFO sightings, it's not unusual to see more than one object. Just as U.S. military planes fly information as a part of their fleet activity, the same can be true for alien craft. For example, there was an incident in 1986 with Japan Airlines that involved multiple lights as well as a mothership. And at that same time, there was multiple towns and villages around that area that had seen their own sets of lights. There's been a lot of multiple sightings of craft in one incident. Well, there was a sighting over a village, a remote village in Alaska, where there were multiple lights in the sky, multiple craft and colors on display for all the residents of that village. In that incident, it came across as though they were putting on a show specifically for that village, for the people to see. It didn't fit that it would be any kind of activity where they were specifically doing something else. With all the acreage of the state of Alaska, for them to be in that specific location, I believe that it was definitely an interaction with the villagers themselves. The possibilities for why there would be multiple craft could be endless, from them traveling from point A to point B, for them doing some kind of activity in that specific location, or even interacting with the people in that location that is viewing that sighting.
But it's not just what they saw that night in December of 2019 that has Bill worried. It's the specific spot in the sky where it all happened.
This is where we are at currently, and this is where we saw the UFOs. This is a small airstrip called Merrill Field. The airstrip runs east and west. And this gray area here is all military base, Fort Richardson and Elmendorf Air Force Base. Here in Alaska, we have a large military presence.
With its remote outposts and weather-worn roads, Alaska is built on aviation. But as military and civilian flight enthusiasts fill the skies, they've witnessed things that knowledge of earthly craft can't explain. In April of 2020, the Pentagon declassified a series of chilling videos. Fighter jets chasing down unidentified aerial phenomena, including instances in Alaska. But the military has still offered no explanation of what these strange, unidentified objects in the skies over Anchorage might be. For years, theories have swirled about a black pyramid built by aliens hiding in Alaska.
This black pyramid is supposed to be underground, and it was told to me that it was covered at one time back in the Ice Age.
Some think it's an old generator, long since abandoned. Others suspect that aliens still use it today to broadcast messages across the universe, maybe even with our own government's help.
There's something going on. The area's fenced off, and they have signs that says no trespassing, but there's no physical buildings around. Makes you wonder what's going on.
Of all the 50 states, Alaska leads the pack in alien activity, which is why the residents of McGrath have suspicions about a mysterious dead zone deep in the forest outside of town. Not only is the 200-acre patch completely barren, airplanes flying above it often have trouble with their navigation systems. Alien orbs have also been spotted hovering nearby. For decades, McGrath's residents have had more questions than answers. But now, the truth may finally be coming out.
My name is and I am a former United States Army military specialist. After I got out of the military, moved up here. I've lived here since that time, over 35 years. The reason I moved up here is because knowing what I knew, being in the military intelligence, number one hotspot for the Russians to bomb. So if a nuclear bomb were to go off, I might see a flash. That would be it. There would be no suffering.
His identity has been concealed for his own safety.
What I am about to tell you is classified on the highest level of security in our federal government. Telling you this could get me sent to Leavenworth for the rest of my life. During the height of the Cold War, I worked in a telecommunications center which delivered all of the high priority messages. It was not uncommon for most everybody in my office to have a top secret security clearance. Basically, there's unclass, and then there's what they call unclass FDO, which stands for encrypted for transmission only. And then you go from there to confidential, secret, top secret. And top secret is the highest one that anybody in the federal government can have. But above top secret, there is 5 levels of access. But different people, because of the background investigations that were done on them, had a top secret access level 1 or 2. I had a 3. Most of the people in the Pentagon have a 3 or 4. And of course, the president and everybody around him has a 5. Our most important job was to make sure that the president had the information that he needed as fast as possible.
One day, in 1983, he decoded a message that left him and his colleagues completely perplexed.
We saw this message come through, and I ended up processing it, and we noticed the subject line on it was Alaskan Black Pyramid. The message itself was destined for at least 10 or 15 different commanders within our vicinity of different units. We all read the message, and it pretty much gave longitude and latitude of where this Alaskan Black Pyramid was.
Before they could figure out what this pyramid was, they had to figure out where that location could be.
This was the early 80s, and we didn't have Google Earth. We didn't have global GPS systems at all at that time. So one of the guys that I worked with had one of those desk globes that you could use for school, and then tried to find the grid coordinates on the globe. We started looking at the longitude and latitudes of where this pyramid was supposed to be. We figured out basically it was southwest of Denali, somewhere around McGrath. Did hear about men and material being sent there. They were shipping in truckloads of generators and lights, et cetera, to be able to get into it to see it from the inside out.
This confidential confirmation is the first admission that the Black Pyramid does exist underground in Alaska. If the military has known about the pyramid for decades, what are they hiding and why?
In my opinion, the only reason the military or the government would cover up a find is if they found it strategically beneficial. Then they will fight to keep it secret. They will fight to put out misinformation. It's simple as that. If they don't want you to see it, they don't want you to find it, they're gonna make sure you don't.
Ever since he first decoded that message 38 years ago, the specialist has been trying to find out what's inside. Based on top secret intelligence, he believes he is getting close to an answer.
I can only speculate that the Black Pyramid was put there by the same people or aliens that built the ones in Giza. The aliens were here way before us, and they may have had a civilization on this planet that died off, and they left behind pyramids for whatever reason.
Despite the fear of government lashback, this former Army intelligence specialist wants to share what he knows for the good of Alaska and its citizens.
Why am I sharing? I think that the Black Pyramid is going to surprise us all once we get into it. I honestly, in my own beliefs, think that it has so much to offer us. It's just a matter of getting there, getting in. I truly believe that it's going to have technology that is going to surpass anything that we can think of now. And in as much as the federal government is trying to cover it up, I believe that it will come out, hopefully in my lifetime, that we've got a buried pyramid in the state of Alaska.
But for now, the residents of McGrath will have to sit and wonder.
I think we're not alone in the universe. It's just so vast. If you look at McGrath on a map, it's just smack dab in the middle of Alaska. I think it's an ideal place to hide something if you wanted to hide something big.
I'd love to go out there and see, explore, and just see what really is out there. I believe that things happen for a reason, unknown to us humans. So I believe that there's something out there.
Today, Theo is retracing the route from a 2019 flight that mystifies him to this day.
I was down on a flight out of Sandpoint, heading to Dutch Harbor with 3 passengers. Basically, we're over the Aleutian island called Unimak. There's a mountain on it called Shishaldin, which was an active volcano.
It's about 9,400 feet and change straight up.
Almost halfway through the trip, nearing Shishaldin, Theo and his passengers we're in for a shock.
We saw a sphere, a horizontal sphere in the sky about 35 miles southwest of the mountain.
As you can see, the first picture, it's kind of a disc shape and horizontal, and it's quite a ways past the mountain. But on the second picture, it's becoming more defined and it's moving closer to the mountains. Now, I've taken thousands and thousands of pictures with this camera, and there has never been one occurrence I've ever seen anything like this on my camera. According to the observatory, they called it a smoke ring. However, we were flying at about 8,500 feet. We had about 20 to 25 knots on the nose. So any sort of smoke ring would have disintegrated. It would not have moved in a uniform fashion, but this particular thing just started to come towards the mountain. That's pretty crazy.
Theo estimates that the ring was about 20 feet in diameter.
So now we're about right here on the mountain, and we don't know what this is, but something flew out of the mountain. A small shape shrouded in smoke. It looks like something really defined inside of this. All of this happened in a period of about 5 to 7 minutes.
But there was even more to come.
The next picture, this was very, very strange because right after this thing decided to fly out of the mountain, green sphere appeared on the side of this mountain. And I thought that was really, really strange. And then right after this picture, this ring begins to change shape, as if something flew inside of this sphere and started to drag it into a teardrop shape.
By now, Theo was around 500 feet from the object, which now appeared to be as big as a fighter jet.
We're looking at the sphere, we're looking at the mountain, we're looking at the top, I'm trying to look ahead for any possible traffic or anything, but we're pretty concerned about all this that's going on in front of us. We decided at that point it was time for us to leave. We're nervous a little bit because it was getting really, really strange. We didn't know what to expect after that. And the unknown, I think, had everybody a little bit nervous. I had passengers and I didn't want to be something that was going to be read about in the paper, if you know what I'm getting at. You know, I'm as skeptical as the next person. You know, unless I see it with my own eyes, but you can't deny what you're seeing.
Theo tried to put the strange sighting out of his mind. But 6 months later, Mount Shashalden would serve up yet another mind-boggling display.
I was by myself, exact same flight course.
Just cruising along, and I was a captive audience of the mountain again because I was curious just to make sure, I was waiting for anything that might happen, which at that point in the flight, there was nothing. There was cloudless sky, and all of a sudden I looked to the left of me, and it's like, where did that come from? And this was a very strange looking phenomena. I don't know quite what it was.
I see this shape that's sort of obscured in a cloud. It almost looked like the shape was trying to hide in this cloud or something. It was really strange. And as I kept flying, I kept taking pictures of this shape that was almost morphing inside this cloud. It kept taking on a whole new life of its own.
Theo's heart was pounding, not knowing if the entity was friend or foe. Even now, he's still haunted by what he caught on camera.
Seemed to be some sort of wing shrouded, sort of cloaked inside this cloud, and then it looked like there's some sort of vortex coming off the top of it.
As Theo clicked his camera, the ghostly UFO transformed before his eyes. And this time, it seemed to know it was being watched. Suddenly, an unexplained force started to override the plane's telemetry.
My aircraft was on autopilot. My autopilot and my heading basically were on a straight course, but I kept noticing I was 30 degrees off course, heading for the mountain. It got me a little scared. So I changed my heading bug, which steers the aircraft, back on course, and then it did it again. Normally, when you're on autopilot, it holds your heading and is all as advertised. Not this time. The airplane is set on a heading and is doing quite well, and all of a sudden the airplane decides it's going in another direction, and you're going, why? And I've flown by these areas many times. There was a magnetic pull at the mountain, for sure. I finally switched off the autopilot and hand flew the aircraft. Once we passed the mountain, the autopilot was fine.
There was no logical explanation.
I've been flying 35 years, and I have never witnessed anything like that where it was actually pulling an aircraft off course when it was on autopilot. That was a very strange occurrence.
The way Theo sees it, two bizarre encounters in the same exact location, 6 months apart, is proof of an alien presence.
I know we're not alone in the universe. In as much flight time as I have in the state of Alaska and the amount of documentation I've seen on UFOs, I do believe in them. I've seen it with my own eyes. I definitely was not of this earth what I did see.
Are you more nervous to fly through that area now?
I wouldn't call it nervous. Flying by the mountain now, I wouldn't call it nervous, but concerned would be a better word. You never know what possibly could happen. There's some stuff going on by this mountain. I've never seen any cloud do that.
Alaska is known globally for its abundance of wild spaces. But alien sightings are equally abundant there as well. Most of these eyewitness events take place in the sky, but there are instances where Alaskans are tormented by a subterranean alien presence. For decades, there have been theories swirling around extraterrestrial creatures living underground, collecting data on the human race. Lake Iliamna is the largest lake in the largest state in the most powerful country in the world. An ideal spot for one of these alien outposts. What does this underground alien want with the people of Lake Iliamna? What information has it been trying to gain? And where is that information going?
I'm Bob Bird. Came to Alaska in 1975. I'm a radio show host on KSRM, which is the finest radio station on the entire Kenai Peninsula. It's 82 degrees in Soldotna. Here at the studio, it's 67.
Bob's show covers a wide range of topics, from politics to health and nutrition. But there's one subject that's consumed him for decades.
I have a documentary crew here in the studio, and you know what we're talking about. They're here to talk about Illy. Yes, the Iliamna monster. I'm wondering what we've got in that lake. We might have something that's unknown to science. The opinions range everywhere, but what it is a mystery. I first heard about the legend of the Lake Iliamna monster from Chuck Crapuchettes in the 1960s. He spotted it from the air. He was a missionary, and he also founded a local Christian academy here and was a member of the Borough Assembly. He's got both feet on the ground. He doesn't make stories up, and he knows what he's looking at. So I don't think you can dismiss Chuck's account at all, but I'm a skeptic. I don't know what to think.
Chuck Crapuchettes died in 2004, but his daughter Sarah heard his account many times growing up.
My name is Sarah Erickson, and I live here in Soldotna, Alaska, right on the Kenai River. I am the daughter of Chuck Crapuchettes, who saw the big sea monster in Lake Iliamna. My dad was a commercial pilot, a hunting guide. He was also a school teacher, great storyteller. When he told you something, you listened, and you knew because he wasn't just some fly-by-night guy. I mean, he really had something to say. In the late 1960s, while flying over Lake Iliamna, he saw a giant something in the lake that was so shocking to him that he made some panicked phone calls to people over the radio and said, there is something enormous in the lake. He could only estimate the length of it from the shadow of his airplane, and he figured it was about 20 feet long. Of course, people were really shocked, but they knew that Dad wouldn't come up with some crazy story. He told it to people all over. I mean, it was just like, yeah, there's something huge that lives down there, and I saw it. Dad, being a realist, you know, an educator, wanted to know what was in that lake. And if it was a fish, then it was a fish. If it was a sturgeon or whatever people thought it was, then it was a sturgeon. He wanted to know. That's who Dad was. It's like, let's see what it is.
Little did Chuck know, the case was about to get even more puzzling.
So he put his float plane in Lake Iliamna, attached a big hook with some caribou meat, threw it out there off the floats, and waited. And suddenly, something huge grabbed that hook and started dragging down his plane. It was pulling him down, pulling the whole airplane, if you can imagine, the floats that want to float, down into the water. Dad had to cut the line because it would have pulled his float plane under the water. That wasn't a snag. He knew there was something giant down there. It scared him to death. So that was something that made him convinced that it is bigger than a fish or a sturgeon or even a whale. There's something huge down there, and he just didn't know what it was. That story has been repeated several times, and not only that, but other pilots have flown over Lake Iliamna, have seen a giant something in there, and that story impacted me in a way where I knew as a very young age, there is more to this world than we will ever understand. There's just some things we can't explain.
Descriptions of how large and seamlessly this strange being moves through the water point to otherworldly origins.
We've had a lot of witnesses since the end of World War II when float planes covered the area. Fishing game people, missionaries, fishing guides, but all those previous sightings were by lone individuals who can be mistaken.
All these years later, Alaskans are still gripped by the mystery of Lake Iliamna.
One morning 3 years ago in the summer, my son called me from Anchorage and said, "Did you see the article in the paper about the Iliamna monster?" And I said, "No." What they saw with 11 different adult witnesses cannot be dismissed. So I picked it up and got some names from the article, and I decided the best thing might be to try and contact these people myself and maybe go on and interview them. I had a friend who was a pilot and had an airplane. I said, let's go interview any of the witnesses. That's when I had a good look at the lay of the land and talked to a few of the people who were amongst the 11 witnesses. I checked their stories to see how well they matched. They were pretty consistent.
Is there any chance that this thing could be from another world, somehow ended up in that lake?
That's outside of my speculation. Something needs explaining there. I don't know what to think. It's a mystery. That's what it is. And it is a mystery that has to be solved.
Bob has continued to look for witnesses, which brought him to two sisters who had an experience all their own.
My name is Christina Salmon. I live in Igiugig, Alaska, and I am the manager for our environmental contracting company.
I'm Alexandra Salmon, and I'm the current president of the Village Council.
Their family are Yupik and have made their home on the banks of Iliamna Lake for generations.
Well, we've lived here our whole lives, and it's a close-knit community, and I think we have a high quality of life out here.
We love our water in Igiugig. You know, we were born and raised drinking it straight out of the lake.
The coastal village of Yakutat lies inside the notorious Alaska Triangle, a vast stretch of wilderness where, since 1988, more than 16,000 people have vanished without a trace. Some believe they've been taken from above.
I'm Nick Pavlik. I'm from Yakutat, Alaska. I'm a commercial CDL driver. I drive log trucks and dump trucks. I'm also a commercial fisherman. My family has a history of unexplained sightings and things that have occurred throughout the years in Yakutat. For the longest time, I guess kind of blew it off as like an old story that, you know, just kind of made it scare the kids or something. But, you know, after what I've seen, I lean towards more like that was real, and I believe them. So back December 14th, my girlfriend Tessa and I, we had been in Anchorage up north for a while and came home. The house had been out of firewood for warmth. So we stayed in our RV because it had propane in it for heat. At 5 in the morning, I woke up to raindrops dripping on my forehead. So I'd gotten up to see what was going on. I grabbed my camera and I parked my four-wheeler behind my RV and I stood on the back of the four-wheeler. So I had my camera above on the roof trying to get a little clip of where the leak could be. And then the back of my neck hair kind of stood up and I had like a cold chill going on my spine. Over the tree line was this weird blinking light, just blinking and moving like sporadically. So I went back inside and I woke up Tessa and I said, hey, you gotta come outside and check this out. There's something going on out here.
My name is Tessa Marie Devereaux. I'm 27 years old, and I'm an Alaskan chick. He came back in and got me, said there was something outside that he needed me to see. I was curious, so I ended up putting on my robe and slippers, and I went outside.
And it just kind of disappeared into the tree line at that point.
And then all of a sudden, there was something else, and it was like way brighter.
Even brighter and closer, and it's blinking and moving just crazy ways and changing colors and nothing like I've ever seen. At first, I was kind of scared. You know, it was scary enough for me to where I wanted to grab some protection, you know? So I grabbed my bear gun and it kept it on me for the rest of the time and the rest of the morning. Because it kind of terrified me. I've never seen anything like it. I didn't know what it was about. Tessa, I believe, was scared as well, you know, at first, but I think she was more excited than anything because not every day you get to see something you've never seen before, you know?
It made me feel like, I don't know, like it's so unexplainable. Like the feeling it gave me, it was unbelievable.
But after kind of calming down, I told her, hey, record this, you know?
I used my phone and we started videotaping.
We had both our phones standing side by side, and I said, I'm keeping my arm, you know, like this, just dead arm, strong arm on it, solid.
It's coming up as like a little circle.
A little teeny speck.
But
it's way bigger and brighter. Yeah. There it is.
What the are they, Nick?
Whoa, it's moving so weird, Tessa.
I had Tessa keep up with that. I said, you keep filming no matter what.
Please keep recording no matter what, okay?
I am not stopping.
I'd say the movement was very sporadic. It'd cover, you know, 5 miles in a single instant, just blinking and moving, you know, like just weird, almost in a figure 8 kind of way. I knew it wasn't just some airplane or a drone or anything because things don't cover that much ground in that fast a time.
You know, I'm watching you, huh? And when I was filming it, I was like, you know, I'm watching you, right? And it, like, right when I said that, it, like, flashed me a bright blue light. Whoa! What are you?
I spent the rest of the night looking out my window. It was scary.
Nick and Tessa weren't the only ones to witness the bizarre lights.
I'm Cranston Negus. I live in Yakutat, Alaska. I always look up, you gotta pay attention. And we kind of pay attention to planes around here. We pay attention to stars, things like this. You're hunting, you're fishing. It's very important. You must know this thing. So we know how high stuff is usually in the sky and what's what. I figure there's no way that we could possibly be alone in the universe because there's some pretty crazy stuff happening in the skies above Yakutat. December 14th, 5:30 a.m., I got a text from Nick. He explained to me that he had just filmed some stuff in the sky, him and Tessa. I met up with him and I looked at the footage and it was pretty weird. He was asking me what I thought about it. And I didn't really know yet. Standing there with Nick, same exact spot that he filmed the and he points up at the sky and goes, "Look at that." Same thing that I saw on his footage. It was very weird. It was moving like something I've never seen before. The maneuvers that were happening, it would fly around and in a split second, it would do a right angle, you know what I mean? It would flash dark and then reappear over here with like a blast of color.
Would you like to see it again?
I'm not gonna sit here on camera and like go, "Hey, could you guys come visit me again?" That was insane.
Little did Cranston know, this wouldn't be the last time this small village was visited. Within days of Nick and Cranston's sighting, their friend Quinn Newland and his mom had their own otherworldly encounter.
I'm Quinn Newland from Yakutat, Alaska. Whole life, born and raised. I was outside on my porch because we were looking out at the stars because, especially in the middle of winter, stars are out like crazy, like no other. Thought it was Venus out in the distance, and all of a sudden, Venus starts moving around. And I was like, all right, planets don't usually move around. It was a little weird. So then, because I was having dinner at my mom's place, and so I go and grab my mom, and I go and show her too. And so when my mom's seeing it, yeah, we were both we were tripping out. We were both like in pretty wow, like holy shit, this is crazy. That was kind of that was the reaction of what we seen. So we were out there probably for about 20 minutes. Sitting there watching this thing. I didn't know what it was. It was like, so, at first it was like, wow, this is awesome. That's when I started recording.
This is like exactly what they seen on Nick's.
It was zipping around the sky, almost zigzagging all over the place. The dogs in the whole neighborhood were making the most horrific sounds you will ever hear. I would say got about 200 yards away.
My name's Coley Stockton. I live in Juneau, Alaska. Juneau is great because there's a lot of outdoor activities. You can hike, you can bike, you can kayak, you can go camping. There's all kinds of places to go camping. There's rivers, there's lakes, and of course the ocean that you can get out on. It's a little bit bigger, so there's a little more to do than a smaller community in Southeast. It's a beautiful environment, a beautiful country. There's mountains, there's water, there's beaches. It's one of the best places to be. I don't believe we're alone in the universe. I think we've been visited a lot and for a long time. There's more up there in the sky than we think there is. They say that although we live in Alaska as part of the Alaskan Triangle, kind of like the Bermuda Triangle.
The Alaska Triangle is a 32,000 square mile chunk of land stretching from the bottom of the state to the top, where over 16,000 people have vanished without a trace. And there are hundreds of UFO sightings every year.
When I actually first saw something, I wasn't sure if it was real. There's a skepticism to a certain point, but once you see something and you know what you've seen, then that skepticism is definitely gone.
Coley had her first sighting on a camping trip with friends along the Gastineau Channel, just a few miles from home in downtown Juneau.
So we were out camping out the road. It was sometime in the summer of 2016. It was dark at night, and someone came running and said, "Did you see that?" And I was like, "Did I see what?" And they turned around to point behind them and said, "That light." And all of a sudden, as they turned and pointed, a bright orange ball of light flashed and lit up the whole side of the campsite, the trees, the little hill that was next to it, and then it just disappeared. And that was it. That was gone. We didn't know what to think. It was pretty scary.
Little did they know, things were about to get even more terrifying.
We're sitting around going, what just happened? And all of a sudden, this huge ship went above us. There were two lights on it that were kind of a bluish green. They were kind of diagonal from each other. And it was so low that it was probably about the distance above me of the roof of a two-story house. It was right there. There was no wind from it, and it was huge, but it was completely silent.
Coley was petrified, too stunned to even move.
It was terrifying. It was pretty scary. You're kind of going, am I safe? There's nowhere to run. Where do I go if something does happen? I'm sure it could have done us harm if it wanted to.
After a few seemingly endless minutes, it sped away. Coley and her friends couldn't comprehend what they'd just witnessed.
I worked at an airport for a while. For something that big to be flying that low and that quiet, it must have had some sort of technology that was different than ours. And I've seen different kinds of aircrafts and military crafts flying through Alaska and through Southeast. We stayed up extra late just to see if we could see it again or if we'd see the lights. Because you have that apprehension at first, kind of going, okay, is this real? Did this really happen? Is this what I'm seeing? Is this what they saw?
The experience left Coley rattled for months. And in the summer of 2017, a second encounter made her start to wonder if she was somehow being targeted.
I was out hand trolling. We were anchored up in a bay across from where the first incident happened. And it was dark. We were sitting there. It was a nice night, clear, warm. We could look across the bay towards the other island on the side. And I could see these lights that looked like campfire lights at first, but then the lights were moving. And they'd disappear behind the island, and then they'd come back.
By now, curiosity was turning to concern.
We're out in the middle of a bay. No civilization around anywhere. It was a little scary.
And it was about to get even scarier.
Maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a little bit later, we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, this bright ball of white light drops down on the bow of my boat and flashes and lights up the whole bay, the water, my boats, the trees along the water line. I was like, panic mode, and the person that was with me slammed the window shut on their side, which is just a little plexiglass window, and I was like, that's not gonna help you. There's no sound. There's no other boats around.
The women were sitting ducks. But just when it seemed like the light was about to swallow them up, it vanished as quickly as it appeared.
It just disappeared. It was gone. Just disappeared. There was something there. There was something that dropped down on the bow of my boat. There was something that dropped down before camping. There's no explanation for it, but it happened.
Coley believed the same UFO had now visited her twice and could be back again. More than anything, she wanted proof.
You know, seen them in the sky before. I've never been able to take a picture or a video, to where you can see that there's something there.
A year and a half later, in winter of 2018, she'd finally get her opportunity.
Totally clear night, cold. I was looking for the northern lights, really. And I walked out of our porch onto the concrete patio part, and I looked up at the sky, and I guess the third time's the charm. I look up and I see these lights in the sky, but this time I was actually able to get a couple videos and a couple pictures. I could see 2 of them in the sky, maybe about that far from the corner of that house, the roof of the house there. And between these trees over here, there were 2 more. You could see that some of the ones over here were actually looking like they were splitting in 2. And then some of them you could see there was actual colors of the lights on them. Because they've become closer than when I've seen them in the sky before, you could actually really see the rotating lights. And I shared some of them on social media sites and actually got quite a bit of response because other people had seen similar shapes. It does make me feel good that other people have seen what I've seen. You know, you kind of think, is it just me? Even though you hear all these incidences, but when somebody else takes pictures that are incredibly similar to yours, it makes you feel a little more validated on what you're seeing. It's unmistakable that it's something.
While Coley takes some comfort knowing she's not alone, she still struggles to understand why these alien beings keep revealing themselves to her.
I don't really know what to think about seeing these things and having multiple experiences with it. All I know is that they've been there for quite a while and they're not going away. In my own opinion, I think that they are ships from someplace else. I don't know why I've had the experiences I've had. Other people know. They're seeing them in the sky.
I believe we're not alone in the universe. I mean, we might not be alone on Earth.
I looked up and I see this formation of red lights. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a helicopter.
I saw 2 stars. Between them, there were 2 orange orbs.
They say that although we live in Alaska as part of the Alaskan Triangle, kind of like the Bermuda Triangle, there's more up there in the sky than we think there is.
Fairbanks, Alaska, a lively city at the top of the world. The skies overhead are busy too, thanks to commercial aircraft and all the military planes at nearby Fort Wainwright. But every once in a while, something enters Fairbanks airspace that shouldn't be there. Unearthly visitors whose intentions may or may not be friendly.
My name is Aldington Russell. I'm a U.S. Air Force contractor working for the U.S. military. It's been an adventure, and it took me here to Fairbanks, Alaska. I believe we are not by ourselves. There has to be more intelligent life than us out there.
After decades in the service, Aldington knows all about flying objects. At least the ones that are supposed to be there.
Radar is my specialty. I know how to identify aircraft and what's moving out there. And you'll have blips going across the screen, and you could determine the speed, the heading, and you could see what you could tell if it's an aircraft, and have an idea of what type of aircraft it is, if it's a fast burner or commercial, just from the speed that it's moving. As a radar maintenance technician, I know what's out there and what we're flying, and I stay on top of it because I'm the Air Force.
But one winter morning, he had an encounter that all the military training in the world couldn't explain.
I had a sighting back in January 2018, 8:25 a.m. So I went outside to have a smoke. This is not the exact spot where I was at. I was actually 20 feet to the north of here. But when I came outside, I saw 2 stars. Between them, there were 2 orange orbs, and they were moving. I was intrigued, and I just kept looking. I couldn't take my eyes from them, because that was the only thing in the sky. Like, overcast sky, that's the only thing you can see. I'm not supposed to see stars. Stars are supposed to be beyond the clouds, but they were within our atmosphere. And that was confusing. And then the two orbs, one of them left first going to the west, and the other one dipped down and then accelerated faster than the other one because he caught up to him. And then I looked away, but then when I looked back, they were gone. But I heard a loud roar, like a 400 cycle generator. Oh, really loud.
Whatever it was, defied the laws of aeronautics.
If you could imagine something that is, like 35 miles from you, and it's going to cover a distance of 30 miles in less than a second. And for it to make that much noise at that distance, I don't know what it was, but they were fast movers. It's just like, wow. They would run circles around our Air Force.
After what he'd seen, Aldington couldn't stay quiet.
After I saw this, I just felt I should share it with someone. And so this is what I drew up to explain what I saw. There were two up to the left from my vision, but then I noticed that there was two orange orbs. Whatever it was, they were some intellectually advanced people that was in those aircraft. They moved at a velocity that is phenomenal. But this is what I saw and wrote down on that day. I'm still astounded.
So you've never seen anything like that anywhere else in the world?
No, we don't have that kind of technology. To hover and then move. To me, we were visited. That's the sense I got from it. It wasn't man-made. For these guys to come from another planet and to get here, I would love to hear about their navigational systems and their guidance systems because they have to be moving very fast. Forward seeing radar, stuff I do, I would love to hear about their technology.
As a loyal member of the U.S. Air Force, Aldington wanted to make sure his superiors were aware of what he'd seen.
I tried to put the word out there and see if anyone would contradict it, and hoping that the military would be the ones that come back and say, oh, that was one of our experiments or something. But no one ever got back to me. They probably can't explain it themselves. It's way over their heads as well.
Or maybe, just maybe, they've been sworn to secrecy about visitors from another world. Either way, Aldington refuses to stay silent.
It's important to share this with the world because I saw it, I know what I saw, and other people have seen similar things. Maybe they should open their voice and say something as well. I just can't imagine that we could be by ourselves. The galaxy is too big to not have anybody else.
Physics-defying encounters that even experts can't explain. Repeat sightings over the span of years or across vast distances. And signs of extraterrestrial beings warned about in centuries-old lore. All point to one certainty, that alien visitors have been in Alaska and continue to frequent America's last frontier.
My name is Al Rhodes. My family and I had a scary experience leaving out of Anchorage, Alaska, on our way to a new duty station as we served in the United States Air Force. My job in the military was a radar operator. That's where I met my wife. She worked in the radar station also.
My name is Ginger Rhodes. We became friends first, and 3 years later, we were married in 1980.
My wife and I were both stationed at Elmendorf Air Force Base, Alaska.
Located in Anchorage, Elmendorf's primary mission is to defend America's northernmost border from airborne attack.
I was responsible for early warning and identification section.
I identified aircraft coming into the airspace and leaving the airspace.
It's high-pressure work, assigned only to the most skilled and disciplined airmen.
You're staring at a radar screen, and blips come over.
A blip was an aircraft, and so you track the aircraft that way.
You had to identify these guys as either friendly, unknown, hostile, and you had 2 minutes to do that.
After years studying those blips, there are very few aircraft Alton and Ginger can't recognize.
Part of our job is to understand what these aircrafts are, know some of the capabilities of the aircraft.
I could identify almost any aircraft.
Alton and Ginger were so good, they were transferred to an Air Force base in Florida that needed help with its radar station.
We bought a brand new Dodge Ram van.
Within about 3 weeks of buying that van, we were driving to Florida.
They had an epic journey ahead of them. Thousands of miles in 2 weeks. Their first leg took them northeast, toward the Canadian border.
Nothing unusual about the day. We just rode, talked on a normal routine drive.
That night, maybe 7:30, my son and my daughter was asleep in the back of the van. My wife was sitting up front with me. We were maybe 20 miles to Toke Junction. All the power went out of our van. The lights went off, the engine shut down.
We had no idea why.
And I turned the key switch, and no response from the vehicle. We did pull off the road.
And then it happened.
Flashing lights over the van from nowhere.
You couldn't see what it was. You could only see lights.
This object, whatever it is darting back and forth on either side of the road, and it's still flashing these lights.
Alton and Ginger were dumbstruck, trying to make sense of what they were seeing.
It would be over the van 1 minute, and the next minute you look, and it's like hundreds of miles away. And I mean, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. And that fast, it would be right back over you again.
This thing could zip. I've never seen anything like that. It's like taking a laser pointer and just moving it on the wall. Zip it from one side to the other. This thing, I don't know what the hell it was. And I was responsible for identifying aircraft.
Adding to the couple's terror, they seemed to be trapped in the UFO's wake.
Each time this thing was over the top of our van, man, you could feel that power. You could feel the power. That van just rocked.
My dad used to put the car under a railroad trestle when the train was going over, and that's what it sounded like boom. And my first instinct was to freak out.
I was afraid for my life. I remember my wife telling me not to leave the vehicle.
And I was like, no, honey, please, please don't get out the van, because I didn't want something to happen to you.
But we were just sitting there, just sitting ducks. And by then, I think my son was crying, so I had to do something. I grabbed a pair of pliers from my toolbox and raised the hood of the van, and I touched the pliers to both poles on the battery. No spark. And this time, my wife is screaming for me to get back in the van. I did get back in the van, and we're sitting there. No power, no lights.
And this thing came back over again, and the van was just shaking.
After sitting there for maybe 10, 15 minutes, this thing finally left. And all of our power came back on the van. I tried the key, and it cranked with a strong battery. And we drove to the hotel. And I remember asking the lady behind the counter when we checked into the hotel, has anyone ever reported anything like a UFO? And she laughed and said no.
But Alton and Ginger weren't laughing along, especially when they realized they'd lost hours of time. Even with their 15-minute delay, they should have hit Toke Junction by 9 p.m.
It was around 11-ish when we checked into the hotel. I can't explain any of it, but I have no idea, no recollection.
Missing time is a phenomenon often connected to UFO sightings and abductions. And much to the couple's horror, the after effects of their encounter were just getting started.
After we arrived at the hotel, I started to get sick. I'm the only one that got out of the car, I'm the only one that got sick that night.
The next thing I hear is a loud boom. And it's come from the bathroom, so I get out of bed and I run in there, and he's had, like, fainted into the tub.
And I was sick like that for a few days.
Yeah, I had to drive for the next 2 days. He was that sick.
When we finally arrived at our next duty station, my commander was concerned about me. He thought that maybe I was under a lot of stress, but if you were part of the government, and I was, something you didn't talk about, unless you want to bring your career to a screeching halt.
Alton simply had too much to lose.
I joined the Air Force in 1974. I had 14 years in service at the time, 6 years to go before I retired. Those are the things that I was up against. Probably everyone that's had an encounter is up against. You will probably be sent to the psychiatrist within an hour of telling your story. As a matter of fact, if someone else had told me the story that I'm telling you, I probably would have laughed at it, and I probably would have been one of those people guilty that the person's got to be out of their mind, because that kind of stuff don't happen.
I don't think Alex and I even talked about it until after he retired. It was just that taboo.
Telling their story may ease Alton and Ginger's minds, but what they experienced on the road to Toke Junction still haunts them to this day.
I had no reason to believe in UFOs, and it was nothing I even thought about.
Fairbanks is the closest thing to a city you'll find in Alaska's harsh, secluded interior. But residents here swear they're not alone. In fact, Fairbanks is such a hotbed of UFO activity that locals are more likely to see an alien spacecraft at night than they are the lights from the next closest town.
My name's Jared Augustine, born and raised in Fairbanks. I live with my wife and my daughter, Azalea. Good parkour. I love the people here. I love the culture. I just love everything about it.
It's that devotion to his hometown that prompted Jared to become a security guard.
It takes a lot to even be a security guard here in Alaska. There are times where it gets a little hectic or sometimes very dangerous. I have rescued people from freezing to death or falling into the river over here. I have stopped a guy from stabbing me when he pulled out a knife secretly because I'm keeping an eye on everything. Being observant is literally a matter of life and death for me. I believe that my word is set to a higher standard being a security guard or a form of law enforcement and, you know, showing that I can give the truth that's out there to the people that need it. Honesty is very important to me and is a very key thing for me because it shows that you can trust that person and you can come to them if you need help or just to talk to anybody about, just talk to them about anything. And having that kind of bond is very important, and same with integrity.
But as Jared would discover in May of 2016, some threats are just too big to defeat.
It was a normal day. It's on my patrol, about 2:55 in the morning, almost 3 o'clock. Came up this way, about right where that trash can's at. And then all of a sudden, I saw a light in the sky. At first, I thought it was an airplane just flashing its lights. And I just went around the building and I finally got a clear view, and I was right here. It was just phenomenal. I just whipped out my phone, and that's when I started recording. You can see in the video these trees right here. It was bright, hurt my eyes, but the phone couldn't capture how bright it was. And it kept blinking like it was doing a Morse code. About 1 minute and 3 seconds in, I saw an orb drop from it. And it was the same color as its, I guess, mothership. And it went down like that and it disappeared.
Awestruck, Jared kept his camera phone aimed at the sky.
And I just kept filming, and 2 more orbs shot out of it. It transformed into a triangle shape, perfect triangle. And after that, the 2 little orbs just dissipated and gone. And while the main UFO up there just kept on blinking. It was a big ball of light shooting smaller balls of light.
Jared couldn't believe his eyes. Whatever these things were, it seemed like they were on a mission.
Possibly drones surveying the area, recon, so to speak. Check out what's going on in this small town. What are these people doing? I just kept watching, and it rose up back into the sky and turned off like a light switch.
Finally, the spell was broken as Jared tried to make sense of what he'd just seen.
I was excited, but also very scared. Just how fast it moved, I don't believe anything that we have here can do that. And when I was recording, there was no sound. No helicopter sound, no propeller sound, no jet sound, nothing. It was quiet. The only thing I heard in the video were birds chirping around me.
Oh, wow. What the heck is that?
Oh, I was terrified. I was very terrified. You can see in the video, I was kind of shaky. And during those shaky moments, I was actually looking behind me because I had a fear that there was gonna be, I don't know, little gray aliens or little green men behind me to abduct me or something because I witnessed them or something like that. As soon as I got done filming the UFO in the sky, I instantly called my friends, I called my wife, but it's approximately 3 a.m. in the morning. They're not up. And then from there, I decided to upload it to social media. I wanted to share with the world. I wanted to show them what I witnessed, what I experienced.
Going public wasn't without risk.
I was pretty scared. I was afraid I was gonna lose my career. I was gonna become a laughingstock, so to speak.
But to the contrary, Jared garnered more support than he'd ever expected.
It turned out the outcome has been very positive. I've seen orbs in the sky as I was younger, but I could never capture them. All I could tell them. And of course, you know, people think, you know, they're just stories or my vivid imagination. But I finally officially captured one, and I just want to show the truth.
He also hopes that one day we'll know far more about the intelligent beings who visited the skies over Fairbanks.
In the past, there has been rumors of first contact, but their minds were either erased or was a government official and they kept it hush-hush. But first contact with people as a civilization, with everyone witnessing the event, I think that could come. If I saw an extraterrestrial being right in front of me, trying to make contact, I would probably be very scared. But I would let them into my home and talk with them and gain knowledge from them and learn things about what's beyond, you know, our own universe, possibly. What's life for them on their planet? I think we're very close to possibly first contact. I think they're waiting for us to become unified, to stop fighting, to work as one and build a utopia for everyone to live in peace.
About 2 hours north of Anchorage, Trapper Creek is a remote village whose 400-plus residents pride themselves on their close relationship with nature.
We wanted to give our children what we considered a better life. So we moved here in 1998. We immediately fell in love with Alaska. I walk between 5 and 6 miles every day. I take lots of pictures. That's really my main passion. Oh, this is cool. We got watermelon berries right there.
I'm Bill Sleesman. I live in Seward, Alaska. I work for a fish processing plant, and I'm the dock manager. I unload salmon out of Resurrection Bay. I don't believe we're alone in the universe. The native cultures, and if they say they've been seeing things for years, such as Bigfoot, UFOs, or whatever. I've never seen a Bigfoot, but I have seen some people call them UFOs. I've seen them with my own eyes. They're out there.
Bill's encounter happened many years ago, but it's etched in his memory forever.
I was sitting in my log cabin. It was just before dark, and it was still daylight. And I heard this military helicopter, so I went out with my binoculars in my hand to investigate what was going on out there. What was strange to me, that there's absolutely no markings on this Black Hawk helicopter. No white writing, no letters, no nothing, completely blacked out. Looked at them for quite a while, seeing if I could figure out what they were doing. They were just sitting there hovering.
That was strange enough. But what Bill saw next as he headed back for the cabin would rattle him to the core.
It was like a starship. The thing was huge. Probably 1,500 to 2,000 feet long, probably 400, 500, 600 feet across, probably 300, 350 feet in air. It was big. It was beautiful. It was kind of a gray silver color.
And it was close enough that Bill could make out details underneath.
It had kind of a diamond-type crystal right in the middle of the bottom of it that was emitting blue and white reddish lights. I sat there and looked at it, went, oh my God. I've been under a super tanker on a fishing boat, and this thing dwarfed the super tanker. And it was just sitting there hovering within a quarter mile of my house, or less.
As Bill stared at the craft, mesmerized, something weird started happening to his body.
I felt this strange feeling, almost like an energy-type power thing. And I wasn't sure what it was. I'd never felt it before, but it almost felt like my body was kind of humming. At that point, after I looked at it for a few minutes, I went into my house. I called my neighbors up and asked them, hey, would you do me a favor? Tell me I'm not crazy and look over the top of my house and tell me if you see what I think I'm seeing. They told me that, yes, they did. They were in shock also. And then I hung up with them, went out, set my chair in the yard, and sat there and watched it for hours.
The next thing Bill knew, he was waking up inside.
I don't actually remember the thing leaving. All I know is that I was back in my house. I don't remember all of it.
Bill lost several hours of time that night, common with alien abductions. But there's one thing he's sure of. Whatever he saw that night was not of this world. And plenty of other people saw it too.
The next morning when I was going to work in Soldotna, we were listening to KSRM radio on sound off, and there were people all over the area reporting seeing lights last night. And I had no doubt at that time that that was the same thing that I'd sat and watched for probably an hour and a half.
I'm Bob Bird. I'm from Nikiski, Alaska, and I'm a radio talk show host. This community is rather large. We have 40,000 people in our immediate trading area. As a result, the show Sound Off takes calls on almost any topic. That night, hundreds of people saw strange lights over Cook Inlet. The lights would hover, they would move horizontally, they would move vertically. They cast reflections on the inlet waters, and was seen by hundreds of people. Bruce is on the line, and Bruce, you're live on the Bird's Eye View.
I'm looking out the window, I see these lights through the trees, and I'm thinking, what the hell would that be?
And then what happened?
Well, they just went by, and that was it.
You are live on the Bird's Eye View.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mentioned I saw some strange lights over Tustamina. Would have been between about midnight-ish, at least it was midnight to 1 a.m. So it was lights moving in a strange pattern that I'd never seen before.
Now, we do have oil platforms, but they are nowhere near where these lights were seen or even in their direction. Of course, helicopters come and go for the servicing of the oil platforms, but the folks that I spoke with who actually saw it said they could not figure out the speed and maneuverability of the lights. Certainly had nothing to do with the helicopter. Any single person can be mistaken, but when, there's all the citizens who live in the bluff are reporting the same thing, you have to give it some sort of credibility.
There were a lot of people on the Kenai Peninsula that saw this. Nobody really offered any theories. I never asked about it because, back 30 years ago, people will label you as, he's crazy.
Bill suspects the truth is out there, but that the government is holding its secrets close to the vest.
The military guys that were in that helicopter, it had to be military, and it was apparent to me that they were following this UFO and they were tracking it. I can understand our government not wanting to tell people because a lot of people do not want to believe, but they're out there. Trust me, I've seen them. They do exist. The reason I'd think that Alaska would have as many UFO sightings as they have had, it's a really, really big state. There's lots of places to hide. If they don't want you to see them, you aren't going to see them.
He challenges anyone who thinks that spaceship was just a figment of imagination.
I'm here to tell you, this thing was real. It was very large, and I was kind of stunned, and it was just sitting there hovering with no sound. I saw it with my own eyes. Seeing is believing, and this was the first I've ever seen anything like that. I've seen lights in the sky and stuff like that. Blew it off as satellites or airplane or something else, but nothing that I ever was concerned about. But I saw what I saw, and that's the way it is, and I'll take that to my grave.
Anchorage, Alaska's most populous city, is home to a joint military base and the state's largest airport. But there are things flying overhead that don't come from this world. And plenty of people who live here have seen them with their own eyes.
My name is Dustin Darden. I'm a carpenter by trade, and I work as a maintenance worker for the municipality of Anchorage. I'm also running for the mayor of Anchorage. My parents came here to Anchorage seeking adventure. I've lived here my entire life. So people would describe me as someone who wants to let them know what's going on in the world. The parts of the news that you're not going to catch from the mainstream. I want to know what's really happening, and that's how people describe me, because I'm constantly hearing information, seeing stuff firsthand, and letting people know what's going on. People will describe my character as someone who's honest and is integral. Honesty and integrity in my life is foundational. It's everything. I like being on time, and I like the truth.
Encircled by icy waters and treacherous mountains, Anchorage is an island of civilization where primal wilderness is always within reach.
There's something special about Alaska and its remoteness. I've seen eagles in the sky, I've seen owls, I've seen dragonflies flying on the lake, and then a trout coming up to eat the dragonfly, and then an eagle swoop in and catch the trout.
Nature can put on a good show here, but sometimes Dustin casts his eyes even higher.
I will sit next to the airport and I will watch air traffic take off. It's just really impressive. You feel the power of the planes. I'll sit right underneath it just to feel it. I've seen 747s take off, and I've seen F-22s take off. I love watching the planes. I'm always keeping my eyes up to the sky. And I've seen all kinds of things that I cannot explain. I don't believe we're alone in the universe. I absolutely believe in UFOs. And there's a lot of stuff that I do not know about what else is out there.
Many Alaskans share that sentiment. But Dustin has some unique theories as to these visitors' origins.
I base my belief structure off of the Bible. The Bible talks about 1/3 of the angels being cast out of heaven. And all throughout the Bible, some of the good angels or aliens show up to people and they typically get freaked out. I believe aliens are angels.
Theories aside, Dustin Darden had never witnessed anything otherworldly until one day in late 2020.
So it was a Saturday, so I just felt like getting out and going for a stroll on the Coastal Trail at Laneri Park.
The park sits at the very top of the Cook Inlet, between the city's airport and the Elmendorf Air Force Base, an area notorious for UFO sightings.
Looking up in the sky, lo and behold, I observed a light that caught my attention. And I was thinking, I don't know what this is. Is this some kind of satellite or something? It was dimly lit, white, blue, elongated, traveling across the sky, and then it stops and turns the other direction. And then another light went towards it, and then a third followed up in a close grouping, and it's in a group, and then it starts moving in sequence, like an equilateral triangle. Then 3 more lights showed up, then 3 more coming up from below. So a total of 9 lights, 3 groups of 3. I watched it for 10 minutes, moving and changing formations, keeping triangles, but moving in a larger group. And just like it appeared as one, they all disappeared back to one. Then they were gone.
Do you have any fear?
No, I'm not afraid. I was left in awe, just watching like one of the most amazing things. When I saw those lights, I felt thankful to be able to see it. There's been phenomenons that have been occurring around the world. For how long, I don't know. And me seeing that gave me firsthand eyewitness account of what happened. And I just felt like it was a pleasure to see it.
But were they the angels Dustin had long mused about? Or something else? Something with a more pointed mission.
So do you think that what you saw had power enough to do harm if it wanted to?
From what I saw, it looked like they were investigating what we had going on here, especially because we were right next to Elmendorf Air Force Base. The strategic location of our military and the resources that we could deploy could very well be part of the reason why we have aliens visitors. I did record it with my phone. It showed up barely on my camera, but that was definitely highly intelligent technology.
While Dustin may not have gotten the proof he wanted, he's bound and determined to try again.
What I've learned is that as time goes on, more and more sightings are occurring, and the validation of what's going on is getting that much more undeniable. If you look at people nowadays, a lot of them are looking down at their phones, so their eyes aren't necessarily looking up to the sky. If you're looking up at the sky here in Alaska, you are going to see some stuff. By me coming forward and telling people what I saw, I hope that it encourages other people to talk about what they've seen. I absolutely believe I'll see something like this again.
Downtown Anchorage is a hotbed for UFOs. But the wilderness beyond the city can be just as horrifying.
I know we're not alone in the universe. And why? Is because I have seen unidentified flying objects. There's lots of mysterious things about Alaska. It is out of this world, literally.
Looking up in the sky, lo and behold, I observed a light.
As I was walking outside, this perfectly round orb, it was moving. It looked to be 10 different faces in the sky.
Looked at my surveillance camera, and that's when I seen those UFOs. It was going super fast, and then I seen another one come right up on it.
I saw what I saw. I'm that guy. I don't care what people think.
On Alaska is the main town in the remote Aleutian Islands off mainland Alaska. A port city with less than 5,000 residents. Haunted by a legendary creature from out of this world. Some call it Bigfoot, but among the native Aleut people, this alien visitor bears another name. As they warn their children, stay away from the outside man.
I'm Elizabeth Cook, and I live in Soldotna, Alaska. I'm 5/8 Aleut, and I've been living in Alaska for 86 years. Well, if you've never been up in Alaska, it is huge and beautiful. I've seen bears, and I've seen caribou, and reindeer, and moose, and different things like that. My father was a hunter. He always hunted. He hunted birds so we could eat. We always ate wild meat, never had beef, and always had wild meat, and he was a hunter like that. Oh, I can remember when I was about 4 years old, my dad was a reindeer herder, and the experience in that was wonderful. We had one reindeer would pull a big white sled, about maybe four feet wide, and to carry all this stuff. Then we had dog teams, and my dad was the dog team musher. He brought food up to the villages and tried to help like that, and riding a sled with 3 dogs is a lot of fun. It's just fun to have. It's been an experience living up here in Alaska. I had a terrifying experience in Unalaska, Alaska.
Elizabeth was raised to believe in otherworldly beings.
Years ago, I used to hear my elders talk about different things in their life that happened to them and what they seen, and all of it isn't human. I don't remember too much of it, but I do remember my elders, when you listen to them, you always had to be quiet. You always listen to what the stories are telling you, and they could tell awesome stories about things they've seen. And there's different things up here in Alaska. Alaska is so big that you couldn't imagine what would be out there at all. A lot of scary stuff. I think there's other things out there that are scary and very interesting, because I myself had seen something that was very, very scary, and I'll never forget it all my life.
It all happened over 30 years ago, not long after she and her family moved to the Aleutian Islands for work.
We were moved on to Alaska where my husband could crab fish, and I work in the cannery. Oh, the day was the usual thing. We took care of our kids, and then we met with our friends because both our husbands had to go out on the boat. And we took them out to the car and came back home and decided to stay with my friend and her kids because our husbands were gone. It was late at night. It was dark. It was probably about 1 o'clock in the morning. And something happened. We heard something outdoors that sounded like a little baby crying or a little lost child. So both of us looked out and listened for a while, and it was very quiet. We didn't hear anything, so she started to close the door, and I was going back to the table, and something made me look up at the window. I looked up, and I seen this thing. It was looking at me right face to face, eyeball to eyeball, and his eyeballs are red. And I froze. Oh, when I seen that thing, I was so horrified, scared. I'll never forget. It's been over 30 years, and I still feel the same way. It is so scary and awesome. It had dark skin, and it had big face, and it was hairy. It was a creature. I just know it was because it was 8 feet tall, and its face was twice as big as a human. Sure thought it was gonna break in and get us. And I just couldn't move, and I had to look at it until my friend said, "Liz, what's wrong?" Because I had this awful look on my face, I guess. It was so scary. She looked up, and she let out a scream, and she started to move and go backwards, and I was just froze there looking at it, and it kept looking at me and looking at her, and then look at me again. I was froze right at my spot, and I could not move. It seemed like that thing had power over me because I was so frightened. And just as I was gonna run into the other room, very slow motion, seemed like going away from the window. I didn't see it after that, but we thought it was gonna break through the window. We went back to the bedroom, tried to get somebody over to help us in case it broke in. And nobody would come around and help because they knew what it was, and they weren't gonna go out and leave their homes to help us. It was so scary. I think we're all lucky to survive because you never know what a creature like that would do. We thought sure it would come in and get our kids.
Liz knew in her heart they'd just come face to face with the outside man.
It was just so big. I just know it's an extraterrestrial because it didn't look like human at all. After I seen the outside man, at night I couldn't keep the windows open. I thought it would be looking in again. I get a little bit like right now I'm nervous and scared.
What torments Liz to this day was the bone-chilling sound that preceded the encounter. Legend has it, these cries are like bait to lure victims out of their homes.
I think he made a noise to see what we would do because we had to look out there and see what was going on out there. We thought it was a little kid too crying, and there wasn't anything. She wasn't even through almost shutting the door, and I seen it, and then she seen it. If we'd have stepped outside, what would have happened? Would it have grabbed us? And it's been that long, but I still get the same feelings because it was so frightening. Whenever I talk about it, I feel this way.
30 years later, Liz is convinced this alien being is still skulking around the Aleutian Islands. Many extraterrestrial encounters take place on the ground. But in Alaska, the skies are alive as well.
After this encounter, I definitely believe in it now.
There are barely 15,000 miles of roads in all of Alaska, but more than 365,000 miles of waterways, a network of icy rivers and creeks crisscrossing the state, nurturing its wilderness and sustaining the people who live there. One such river, the Casilof, runs 17 miles from the Tustumena Lake, past the little beach town that bears its name, and straight into Cook Inlet. Most people know it for its massive salmon, but this waterway may be hiding a dark secret.
My name is Bruce Manley, and I live in Casilof, Alaska. Been living here in the same house since 1979. I've lived in Alaska since 1972. I was born and raised in Virginia. Came up here when I was 19 years old. Went to work in the oil field, out in the platforms out in Cook Inlet. I did that for a few years, and then after that, I got into commercial fishing shortly after. Casilof is a beautiful place. I fell in love with this area because I fish just downstream. Everybody loves the summers in Alaska, but the winters are quiet and peaceful. I like that.
But even in this land of epic solitude, there are ominous clues that we are not alone.
Alaska's a big place, a lot of darkness. It just stands to reason. You got a lot of outdoor people that look outdoors that you'd probably have a better chance of seeing a UFO. After this encounter, I definitely believe in it now. I was working out in Swanson River, which is an oil field about 40 miles from here. It was a 12-hour shift, just got done, got home here about 1 o'clock. I was sitting in my living room, just unwinding, getting ready to go to bed, when I looked out my window and I seen these lights moving real slow. I just couldn't figure out what would be out moving around out in the dark like that. So I got up, I walked as far as closest to the river as I could. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Bruce could not believe what he saw next. Just 100 feet in front of him, hovering over the river.
It was a triangle, black triangle, about 25 feet long. The back end of it was maybe 20 feet wide. It had 3 lights, 1 light on each corner, a white, a green, and an amber. It was moving about the speed of someone walking, maybe 3 or 4 miles an hour. As it got close, I could see the lights, of course, and I noticed it wasn't making any noise. And so as it came by, it got about 25 feet from me. I felt like if I ran fast enough and jumped, I could probably jump on the thing. That's how close it was. And it just went by. It never slowed down or nothing. The same speed, just passed me by. And for some reason, I don't know why, I started picking up snow and started making a snowball. And as the thing came by me, I hit it with a snowball. It just kept going, the same speed. It never slowed down, never stopped.
Bruce racked his brain for a logical explanation.
I was curious. I just had to know what the heck it was. You know, the more I thought about it, when I watched this object going down the river, it was following the open water, and I'm convinced it was checking out the river. You know, it was, well, what else would it be doing? I didn't tell too many people for a while. I mentioned to my brother and my wife. That was it for the longest time.
Then, a couple of years ago, Bruce decided he'd been silent too long.
My wife was listening to the Bird's Eye View radio show on KSRM, our local station. My wife called me and said somebody was wanting UFO stories on the radio, and I figured, what the heck? I called up Bob Bird and told him the story.
Bruce Manley called in and he gave a compelling description of something that happened to him.
Turns out other Alaskans have encountered a triangular craft hovering close to the ground, though many of these reported UFOs moved at a faster pace than the one drifting along the Casilof River.
My friend John Lem Everett saw a similar situation with lights racing ahead of his car and then reaching speeds that were not possible for helicopters or jets, moving vertically and horizontally instantly. Most people who want to go public with this are absolutely convinced that they saw something strange.
I'm not trying to convince anybody what I saw. You know, it happened, that's all I can say. And if they're interested in it, I'm glad to tell them about it. To some people, I can see where it'd be hard to fathom. There was something weird flying around the night I saw what I saw, that's for sure.
It's been over 20 years since Bruce started a snowball fight with a UFO. But that strange craft is seared in his mind forever, and he'll always be waiting for its return.
This is the only experience I've had of this nature. You know, it was a new moon in December and January when this thing came down the river. That means there's no moon, and it's dark. That's when sometimes I'll stay up a little later, looking out the window, just to see if there's going to be a deja vu. There's a couple billion suns and planets in the Milky Way, and there's a couple of billion galaxies, and so I would imagine they've been coming here a long time.
The sheer variance in UFO that visit Alaska is overwhelming. Bruce saw a massive triangle hovering above, but in a town called Nanilchik, UFOs of a different kind have strafed the skies.